Alright guys, welcome to the channel. I've been wanting to make a video like this for a long time. Basically, I bought a car on eBay. How did I do? Did I get taken or was it a good deal? So like most of us in January, we're not in the shop working because it's too cold. And what are we doing? Well, we're looking at cars that we probably shouldn't buy and we probably shouldn't own, and then we accidentally win one and the rest is history. So that's kind of what happened. So I bought this car on eBay, sight unseen, and I got it delivered to me, and we're gonna go ahead and see how it looks. All right, after quite a bit of work, we got the car unloaded off the trailer into the shop. So this is the first time I've laid eyes on it. It's a little drier than it was, but because it was hauled from Louisiana to Texas in rain, it's completely filthy. So we'll see how much we can see. But we're gonna look at the exterior of the car, you know, front to back, and see what it needs. The idea was kind of to buy one that had fairly decent cosmetics and just needed mechanical. I'm hoping that's what we have. So we'll start here in the back. I knew about these. This looks like brake fluid or something got dripped on here. I knew about that. That, we'll see. Here in the back, we got the Corvette emblems are all there. The lights are there. Bumpers, exhaust. Those bumpers probably could need some shine, but it is what it is. So far the paint, it's fairly decent for what it is. These wheels are horrible, and I think I want to sell them. If you want them, come get them. Anyway, these door handles would definitely need replaced. Those are just pretty crappy. Windows look decent. It's got some really gross tint on the front and the back, which we will have to address. It also, T-tops, there's a lot of scratches and stuff in them, but again, I can't tell what's dirt and what's what are real scratches. Windshield is completely filthy. Going toward the side of the car, I noticed that we are missing the Stingray emblems. I probably have one of those. It's like this door skin has come unbonded from the door. Luckily, it's not rusty. It's just unbonded, which is more common than people think. We'll have to fix that. That's not that big of a deal. Here on the hood, there's a few more chips than I thought there were. Again, also, the guy that loaded it for me, he put a strap on it and he rubbed the crap out of all this paint. I really hope that it cleans up. Coming around the front, the emblem is missing off of the front. A couple paint chips in the bumper, which I knew about, at least were shown in the pictures. The grill that is missing on the outside is inside the car. So, all in all on the outside, I think it'll clean up well enough. Weirdly enough, this car used to be blue with tan interior, and now it's double red. So, I think it'll work. I think it's good enough. Just need to take some time to clean it up, really. First thing I want to do is clean this windshield. I don't know why, but I know I need to wash the whole rest of the car, but I'm definitely cleaning this windshield first because it's nasty. Well, that's a whole lot better. I really gotta get rid of that tint. That's so horrible. I'm just not a fan of super dark tint, especially on classic cars. Never came with that stuff new, just not a fan. Well, that was easy. So much better. All right, next we're going to go to the inside. Part of the reason why I bought this car is because the inside didn't seem totally trashed. So let's take a little tour. According to the tag, this car is supposed to be blue with tan interior. I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, they did a fairly decent job painting it because I can't really tell much blue at all other than when there's just little bits that would maybe pop up. That's it. All right, door panel on this side looks really good. Obviously it's original. All the trim needs painted. Door winders aren't necessarily correct. Here on the dash, it's a decent looking dash other than the speaker is cracked over there, but that's normal. Panels look fairly decent. Steering column's all there except for the horn button. We have the AC vent is missing. I didn't notice that before. Center console is there, so is the e-brake. It is also missing pieces underneath here. It feels like an aftermarket one just because it's flexible and not cracking into a bazillion pieces. Here's the grill for the hood. The seats are decent. I think they'll clean up. They look like they've been redone, and someone didn't put in the bar spacers that are supposed to go here. I don't know why they didn't do that, but there it is. I know that these, I don't think the foam was ever replaced. You can see that's the original foam for sure. I don't know if these are replaced. They look like replacement covers. This doesn't look like the typical factory color that it would be. Anyway, somebody got lazy. The other door panel looks really good. Dash pad looks good. One thing I was really disappointed on is there's no T-top panels. But anyway, one of those things. And then all the panels on the roof look decent for what they are. Weirdly enough, it looks like they painted the birdcage red too. How strange. Some new weather stripping on places. Missing the rear view mirror. Anyway, I think I have a lot of these parts here in the back. This is a replacement frame. The doors don't have any hinges or any hardware. It's missing this piece along here. This frame's for sure been replaced. It's a different color. The weirdest thing about this car is they are missing the panels that go here that hold this piece on, so they just zip tied it together by drilling a giant hole. Great. So we'll figure that out when we figure that out. Pretty typical interior, not too worried about the interior. It'll all clean up fairly well. The big issue that we're gonna have is this. So, as you know, this was a manual shift car. Ooh, Corvette. Because I need to know my floor mats and my shifter and everything needs to tell me what I'm driving. Anyway, this is a manual transmission car. So this is where the shifter would have gone. And it has automatic in it now. So I'm going to have to either figure out a way to put automatic shifter in it temporarily or make it back to a manual, which I definitely can do. We're just going to have to see where that leads. But that's a big question mark for later. For right now, I think we'll focus on the engine bay. Last but not least, let's move into the engine bay. This has some special things. All right, we'll start on the good side. So missing a wiper arm here, not really that big of a deal. This actually was an air-conditioned car, which is strange because it is a non-power brake and a non-power steering car, but they bothered with air conditioning. Anyway, so you can see the AC wires. Somebody's been messing around with that. The dipstick tube is cut. This distributor has all kinds of weird wear on it. A bunch of mismatched spark plug wires. This, where is it? This spark plug wire is too short to reach the spark plug because the valve covers are so tall. So that's special. Here in the fuel, we have a blocked off return line. Here's the main line. This fuel pump has two different metal tubes coming out of it. They got this one. We got that one. So that's special. Salami slicer fan, which I'm not a fan of. Get it? But weird pulley on that one. I believe it does have the correct Corvette water pump on it. Not numbers matching, as you can see. That's a little stamp pad versus a big one, which a 73 would have. It looks like the radiator support and all that stuff are fairly original to the car. This one's not really fit in there very well. There's no brackets. I have those, of course. On the hood, we're missing the hood insulation. We're also missing these hood latches. I think this intake is way too tall to fit this carburetor under the hood, so we're gonna have to deal with that when we deal with that. But this air gap intake, I don't think it will work. I mean, it feels like a truck, it would, but not a Corvette, and not with this hood. You'd have to have a hood like my car where it's a cowl hood where it actually will fit. But if that wasn't bad enough, check out this other side. This is what gets me, man. Some people should just not work on cars. If there was a fire, okay, but look at this. They just unraveled all of these wires. There's wire nuts, all kinds of just spaghetti everywhere. And that kind of stuff just, it boggles my mind that people will do that, but it is what it is. Same here. This is all spaghettied up. Just wires everywhere. Here's the cable for the tack. Right here, it's been burned up on the exhaust. Here's the cable. Where's this? There's a speedo cable right here, somewhere right here. Here's the speedo cable right here. You can tell this was a manual transmission car because the cable goes over to the passenger side and up, as opposed to down the driver's side. And then, for example, all the wires on the distributor, trash. I mean, everything just trash. So, yeah, the engine bay, whew, that's where I knew the worst was gonna be. So I'm okay with that. Well, that was a job. I had to turn the car around in the shop, then roll it down with the winch, and then winch it back in. I finally got it in the garage. Whew. I love this little ATV winch that I hook to a battery and I have a mount on the floor. Saves me a whole bunch of work, but it was still hard. Anyway, let's get this car up in the air and really take a look at what she's hiding underneath. This is when the make or break right here. All right, our first view underneath. We have a broken front valence and a missing air dam. We have a missing license plate holder. That's little things. Ooh, that radiator support has seen better days, but I've seen way worse. The radiator looks like it is leaking. There's water. Of course, this could be from the trip home. All right. Front suspension looks like front suspension. I feel like it's had bushings in the lower control arms at one point in the past. They don't look factory. Fuel pump looks new-ish. Oh, so that's a transmission cooler. Oh, one of those metal lines we saw up top, they're from the transmission. Monroe shocks. Manual steering. It's very strange not to see all the power steering stuff. Luckily that can be converted fairly easily. Here is the other side. Looks like it's had upper ball joints at one time. Maybe lowers too. Look at that. And shocks. It's hard to tell on this frame. Most of this just looks like paint. I think it's cracking, but it's not. Let's see. There's the atrocious wiring. It's so bad. So bad. Clutch pedal, rod, the Z-bar mount. Looks like this engine has a place for the other end of the Z-bar, so that's good. Let's see. That's weird. It's like they broke it installing it, or they bashed it installing it, and that's annoying. Transmission, oh, there's no starter. Well, that's a problem. Okay, there's no starter. Great. Some more bubble wiring up in here. Looks like this is a Turbo 350, which is incorrect for this car. It's missing lots of bolts. It's not even bolted into the car, so I was right, they just kind of threw it in. It doesn't look like a 350C, so there's potential that it could still be good. Drive shaft is orange. We don't know why. Let's look at the frame. Frame looks really good. Frame looks really good. Let's go to the other side. Some junky headers. Engine mounts look new-ish. Let's have some work. I'll just paint. No rust. Frame looks really good. So I was mostly worried about. The rest of the stuff is replaceable. I just don't want to do a body off. Ooh. Flowmasters. Nice. Those probably sound pretty good. No spare tire carrier. That gas tank looks new. Sweet. That gas tank's new. That's a bonus. Oh no. Look at all this spaghetti. What in the world? All that. Who knew wiring was going to be such an issue? Here's the light harness. Looks like we need some bushings for the leaf spring. Ah, look at this. It's got adjustable strut rods. So that could be the reason why these wheels stick out so much, or barely adjusted out. And look, there's no bushings left in them. That's what happens whenever you put in those poly bushings. You think you're being a race car and you think you're doing really good. There's not a single piece of material left in that at all. It's just empty. Look at that. You can see in that one. That'll do it. Well, let's get some strut rods on order, I guess. Well, not too bad underneath the car. Other than, oh, I don't know if I mentioned, this is the original manual transmission car because this cross member is welded in. That's gonna look like fun to remove. Yeah, I don't know about that. But we will just have to take it one step at a time. We're gonna focus on the engine. Well, metal-wise, it's what I thought it was gonna be. I think the headlights are gonna need work like they always do. Cool, I like that. Since I have the car up in the air, and I can't put a breaker bar on it from front, we're gonna just try it from the back. I'm gonna make sure this engine moves, because if it doesn't, then we're screwed. So, alright, we got a movement. Air compression. let's drain the oil and see what it looks like. So you might ask, why am I doing this? Well, here's the problem. There's no dipstick tube in this engine. I'm assuming they took it out when they put the headers on. I don't think the headers were always installed. I think they took them off the last engine, or whatever engine, and put it in this. So I can't check the dipstick tube to see what's in it. Let's see what we got. That looks good. It just looks like old engine oil. Not too bad. See how many quarts we have, and we'll maybe add some if we need to, but basically there's no sense in putting brand new engine oil in an engine if you don't know if it knocks or not. So this could have a crazy knock, and I'm not going to waste, you know, $40 in oil and a filter filling it up. So we'll put this back in for now, and if it turns out to be okay, then we'll replace it. I do think I might do something about that filter. I don't know if that filter is going to be a problem or not. Fun fact, this had 6 quarts of oil in it. I wonder why. Doesn't really smell that gas-like, but maybe I should just change it. What do you guys think? Should I dump oil in it? I think I have oil already bought. All right, I didn't put the old oil back in. We're gonna go with new. I had it. It's already been paid for. New filter. The reason being, honestly, I didn't like the way the filter was. Also, the fact that it's 6 quarts in it seems very strange. I'm thinking maybe just full of gas. There's no metal or anything. It's just really old and goopy. But that dent, like, how does that even happen? So I was kind of worried about maybe the flow in the filter wouldn't be as strong, but it probably would have been fine. But, you know, I had the oil. I technically purchased it for something some other time, some other day. I don't remember when or what, but it's new. We'll put it in 5 quarts and we'll know the level is good. The other thing, I'm going to put in a dipstick tube. This one's missing one. I don't think it's a driver's side dipstick. I think it's a passenger side one. But what I want to do is, I know 5 quarts is correct for an engine like this. So I'm going to put 5 in, and then we'll know where it goes. Out of the stash comes a starter. So this is probably a reman. Came out of one of my parts cars. We're going to put it in. It even has a little heat shield for the headers. But it's a staggered bolt pattern, typical Chevy starter. It's what we need, and we will put it in, and that'll be one less thing that this car needs. Alright, I couldn't find a dipstick in my parts I've already pulled, but I think I found one here. So this was a 78, and it had at one time Vortec heads. You can see right there. Anyway, the engine was full of water. It's pretty much garbage, but you see there's a dipstick tube right there we can steal and use for hours. You can see there's the entry point's about 1 inch away from the block, where the block ends to the oil pan, and that's what we want. So we'll take this off and it should work. Got it free. That engine's full of water and goop, and it's a little bent, but it'll work. Also, there's a reman starter right there if I need another one. Alright, the dipstick is installed. It actually bolts up like it's supposed to, so that's a win. The other thing I did was I started removing the bubba. So again, this was a manual transmission car, so there's no place for these lines to go. They've already been bent the wrong direction and just messed up. So I know that when you turn the engine over, if the transmission has any fluid in it, it's going to pump it out and it's going to make a huge mess. So what I did was I just cut them and then looped it. So this will be very temporary. I haven't decided what transmission I want to run on this yet, but with that being said, we're just going to leave those the way they are. But it's actually an improvement because they're not sticking up into the engine bay. Oh, here's some more bubba I didn't see. They never hooked up the ground cable. Why is it so long? Where does that go? Okay. Well, that's not gonna do. All right. Well, there's one question answered. So I have to do this. I have to remove the wiring. Luckily, everything plugs in right here. Basically, it's just one bolt. You have a headlight harness on one side and an engine harness on the other. Just unplugs. And we're gonna rip out all the wiring for this entire car from the firewall forward because look at that. I've had worse, I really have. Anyway, here is the remnants of the harness that I pulled out of the car. Basically, it's the engine side. The headlight harness snaps into this other half. Luckily, this headlight harness, I think I can fix it. They removed the loom, but they didn't really cut anything on it, so I'm pretty sure I can put it back together. It doesn't seem like anything's really cut or any problems. There's any problems with it. So it already looks better in here. No wiring at all gone. So now we're gonna hot wire the engine and see if we can get it to spin. Now that I am not, I guess it still could, but now that there's less of a chance that this car is gonna burn to the ground the second I hook a battery to it, we're gonna hook a battery to it. So I have 2 leads coming off the engine. The pink is for ignition power, and then the orange is gonna be for the 12 volts to the starter solenoid. And we're going to see what happens when we basically connect these 2 wires to the battery in the back. That's why they're so long. And see if we can get it to at least turn over by itself. Alright guys, check out this Bubba wiring disaster. It gets even worse as we go into the car. I think every single wire in this car needs replaced. But, so we have a black cable and we have a red cable. And you would think, well, red is positive, black is negative, right? Well, no. So you see this red cable goes down through the bottom of the box, which then connects to the frame. So red is going to be your negative, and this black one is going to be your positive. So hopefully they weren't the ones that hooked it up backwards, or they didn't hook it up backwards. Hopefully that didn't happen. But I did find this in the battery box. Woohoo, free parts. Anyway, let's get this hooked up. So this battery isn't hooked up to anything other than the car chassis, I guess. So it's not hooked up to the interior or anything like that. But we should be able to basically jump start the starter. Let's see what it sounds like. Well, sounds pretty good. Alright, now we need to move on to ignition. Let's see, we need to plug the ignition in, turn the engine over, and see if we get spark. Luckily, we have this spark plug wire that was too short right here. We can use that to see if we have ignition or not. Alright, let's plug in the ignition. Just gonna kind of shove it in here. Hopefully that's good enough. And then, let's see if this will work. Yep, I can see the spark. I don't think you guys could probably see it on the camera, but there's a very weak spark. This is a pretty large gap, jumping from there to there. So let me get a different plug wire and some gas. We'll see what happens. Alright, I've used all of my gasoline, so we're gonna try this. Can't get it to at least sputter. I know it's not the best. There's gas in the carburetor. Guess it could be water. That's always a possibility. Huh. It's weird. It sounds like it has a hissing noise Do I have vacuum ports wide open? No, they're closed, they're closed, that's closed. Huh. That's so strange. I guess my firing order could be wrong, or there could just be zero compression, or if somehow I've lost spark again. Could be one of those things. Alright, so I pulled all the plugs and I put my thumb in front of each spark plug hole without any plugs in it, and every cylinder will push my thumb out. So every cylinder has compression. How much? It doesn't really matter. But this is where we're at. So I rolled the engine over until we're basically at top dead center on this number 1. So rolled it over until it started. I watched the valves, so the intake valve opened and then closed. Then it started pushing air out, and then the timing mark is here. It's as close as we're gonna get. But so what's that telling me is that number 1 should be firing fairly soon. So according to the spark plug wires, this is where they had number 1 at. And if you pick up this cap, you will see that the rotor is off by quite a bit. So we're gonna adjust that out a little bit, and then we're going to I'm pretty much going to redrop the distributor and see if we can't get the timing a little bit better. Woo! Look at that. That's what timing will do. Looks like the fuel pump still had some fuel in it too. Look at that, that's so exciting. Alright, now let's see if we can make it run a little bit longer. Hey Adam, can you come help me again? I need you to turn the engine over until it starts. Yep. Must be in gear. That was the rear wheels moving. Thank you. Yep. I removed all the old ignition distributor parts. The rotor wasn't bad. I mean, you could probably, I don't know. I have a new one. It's already bought. This is what I mainly wanted to replace, this and the spark plug wires. I don't know what happened. Something was on fire, maybe. I don't know. This is a fake Excel coil top. I've never seen something like that. So you have your Excel coils that kind of look like this, but this just sits on top of the stock ignition coil. Like it's... Anyway, if you know, you know, but that is trash. This was weird. This little grommet inside looked like it had been melted, and then you see the like soot or something on the outside of this. So I'm guessing that there's a possibility this engine came out of something that had caught on fire, but I don't know. Anyway, we'll finish off the ignition system redo with these really nice spark plug wires. Here is the new rotor and the new cap going on, and we'll get that all pretty and looking a lot better now that we know the engine is probably good. Alright, coolant is topped off. I did put a new thermostat in it, so technically the cooling system should be good enough. And I've also put in new fuel lines from the tank to the line, and then from the line to the pump, and the pump to carb with a filter. So that all should be good. I've put 5 gallons in. The tank looked clean, looked new. So now we're gonna run it see what it does. See if we can't get it to idle. I put some gas down this carburetor. Hopefully with a real shot of gas, it'll actually run fairly decent. So the wheels aren't turning this time, which is good. It's a little smoky, but I'm not really worried about it. You can kind of see how a little smoky. It's not anything to be worried about. I'll probably open another door. Guys, in this video we're going to try to tackle the horrendousness that is the wiring in this car. So I feel like part of the reason why it didn't sell on eBay was because it was overpriced, but also is because people were afraid of this. Now, the extent of how bad it wasn't shown or given at all. So it was a lot of a surprise to me, but we're going to start today with basically the wiring from the firewall to the front of the car. So if you're familiar with Corvettes, you know that the wiring all plugs in to the back of the fuse box right here. Conveniently for us, this is a non-power brake car, so it's actually pretty easy to get to. So you have one side, which is the headlight harness, which runs basically down the fender well, does your horns, does your lights, does your alternator, etc., etc. In this case, in the 73, there's a relay horn relay and a power junction on the fender. We'll get to that in a little bit. The other half of the wire harness runs this way, and it runs the wiper motor, the distributor, etc., etc. So this is the abomination that I pulled out of the car. In reality, half of the wires just end 6 inches from the plug, and then the other half are spliced and hacked and who knows what. So this, I mean, there really wasn't any repairing this. That's trash. Now we have this brand new one from Electric Limited. That's the only place that I buy harnesses from. We're going to modify this just a little bit, but weirdly enough, most of this doesn't need to be installed. So these cars had right here, something called a TCS, which is a transmission controlled spark, which from what I understand is the distributor advance is dependent on what the transmission is doing. We're not doing any of that stuff. So like the TCS relay stuff's going to get pinned back. The TCS switch to the transmission, that'll stop solenoid for the carburetor is going to get pinned back. We're basically going to use the wiper stuff, the hooded jar, the ignition power, and then obviously the stuff for the starter. All this other stuff we'll use, but we probably won't plug in, and then like TCS, all that stuff can go away. So most of this harness won't be used, but it will be there in case anybody ever wants to put it back to the original. Now, if people know their Corvettes, they know that Corvette didn't get HEI distributors like that one until 1975. So technically, originally, this should have come with a point style distributor with an external coil. And with that being said, the wire that goes from the fuse box to the distributor is called a resistance wire. Basically, you can't run 12 volts on a point style coil. You have to lower it with either a ballast resistor or in this case a resistance wire. We're not going to do that because then I have to buy another distributor and points and a cap and a whole nother set of spark plugs, wires, and it's like, no, we'll go the easy way and we won't bubba it, but we'll fix it so that it works. So the easiest way to do this is basically do it while it's out of the car. So this black wire you see right here is the resistance wire. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop it out of the fuse block, and then we're going to install a different higher gauge wire in there. I believe 10 gauge is what we're going to use. That we will use to run the distributor. Now, it can always be, the wire we add can always be taken out and then put back in. That's not a problem. And then this part right here, not this part, where is it? This part right here, that's supposed to go to the distributor, will just be zip tied to the harness, and then if they want to use it again, they can. That's what we're going to do. Luckily, we have pieces from this that we can take and use. So, as you saw, the last camera died. I dropped it, so we're having a new camera. So hopefully the quality turns out. I've never used a camera like this before, but here we are. So let's see about getting this harness in the engine. As I showed before, here is the old engine harness and here is the new engine harness. Another good thing I got on eBay was an entire dash harness and a new taillight harness, or I guess used taillight harness for this car, because the one that's in it is basically trash. All right, here underneath we'll show you what I've been doing for the last hour. So basically we repaired one side of the harness, which was the light side, but what we're doing is this is the engine side of the harness, the front harness. So it comes down here and then it splits. So a lot of this is actually not going to get used, weirdly enough. The TCS, the throttle controlled spark stuff, basically I just zip tied it to the harness. There's parts that go on the engine, there's parts that go on the firewall, there's parts that are supposed to go down to the transmission. We're not going to use any of that stuff because it's all emission stuff and there's really no need to. So we have it loomed up around the wiper motor and then all the way back down the other side of the engine. Here on the other side you can see we have the main harness comes down. Here's the ground. This is the wire from the previous video, so don't worry about that one. But we have the main battery cable, we have the main body feed right here, we have the purple S terminal wire here, and then the R terminal wire I've just tied back. Remember, that doesn't go into anything, it's just a dead wire in the harness, so it can just sit there unless somebody wants to put points back in this engine. But other than that, the whole harness is installed. Once we come up from the bottom, it snakes up here and it goes around the wiper motor. So that's the key in installing these harnesses, is they have to go around the wiper motor. You have to unhook it and kind of lay it toward the front and then feed it inside. We have our 12-volt battery power, which we added earlier in the video. These are connectors for the washer pump, which Weirdly enough, this one has the wrong connectors on it, so I'm not sure what to do about those, but we can just, you know, lay them there for now. And then it goes around this way. Here's our R wire, which would go to our coil, and the resistor wire, which would go to the coil as well. Again, just tied out of the way. And then the end of the plug plugs into the air conditioning blower motor. It's the ground and the power for that. And then there's a couple extra plugs at the very end that are, again, for the TCS stuff. The harness does come with this really neat diagram, which basically shows you exactly what every end is. So, oh, I forgot to mention the horn relay. There's a red wire that goes up to the horn relay, but we attach that, and then this and all this we just tied up. The ignition coil plus terminal we tied up. And the windshield wiper stuff we plugged in. Hood jar switch we plugged in. All this TCS stuff we tied up. We plugged these in, and then we use the battery terminal, the S terminal, and then the ground. So it's a really simple harness. After seeing this, I think I could have probably made one instead of bothering to buy the $200, you know, deal for this, but I didn't have any 73s in my yard, so here we are. All right, so now we're gonna hook a battery up to it and hope we don't die. All right, again, our rear harness is unplugged. I have the key in the off position. I'm gonna turn my fan off so I can hear any kind of crackles or sparks or smoke or all that kind of stuff. All right, so let's see. Now when we first attach the battery, we're gonna make sure there's no big, huge arcs, because right now, it's all hooked up. Okay. Nothing so far. Of course, we don't have the ignition on, so that's the key. All right, let's see what happens. Oh, the wiper motor turned on. Maybe it just parked itself. Let's see what it does. Okay. All right, so now we should be able to turn the engine over with the key. Nothing. Might have something to do with the neutral safety switch stuff in here, which could be, this could be some of it. I have no idea. Do we need to push the clutch pedal down? I doubt it. You never know. All right, so the neutral safety switch on the clutch pedal is still there. All right, so key now works. That's good. Looking at these gauges, the battery one could work. The oil pressure definitely not, because it's mechanical. Water temp could work, and then the fuel is not hooked up, so we're not gonna worry about gauges right now. But what I kind of want to worry about is headlights and stuff like that. So let's see what happens. I turned on the headlights, so we should have, well, we got something. We got brights and we got blinkers, brights and blinkers, and one marker. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. That's what I wanted it to be. Last, we're gonna check spark. We did have some, you see it? You see the smoke coming out of the wiper motor? So I unplugged it. We'll deal with that later. It wouldn't be my surprise if that was, you know, just totally smoked, but anyway. I know I put the plug in the right way, so it might be jammed. I also know that the control for the wiper motor is gone, as you can see. Bye-bye, not there. So the wiring for that, who knows where that went, but we're not worried about that right now. We're gonna check spark. All right, spark's pretty easy. Test light, you put your ground on your alternator, and then you put the power probe in here. So the key is on. So we have power. I turn the key. Huh. So it does shut off with the key in start. It just gets a little weak. So we have power. I probably won't have it starting because I'm missing half of my spark plug wires. So we should probably put those back on. Let's do that. Vacuum link that I'm plugging right now. But hey, it runs off the key. That's a huge accomplishment. Sweet. All right. Well, wiring issues was an understatement. I don't know how much the seller actually knew about how messed up this car was, but more I just threw it together to resell is what I see inside of here. The biggest issue is that this dash harness is completely blown apart. There's no, this is the factory wrap. This stuff is supposed to be wrapped up and it's just everywhere. If you look at the one I got, you can see most of the tape still intact. I didn't want to do this, but I think I'm going to. I think I'm just going to swap harnesses just because a couple things. One, I couldn't get power to the rear lights, and I think the reason is because of this janky, weird, who knows what thing they did right here. Also, there's all kinds of just Mickey Mouse stuff everywhere, and nothing like back here was plugged in the right spot. It was just thrown together, and then over here on the gauges, nothing was plugged in, like zero. So I feel like I think I can just redo it faster than I could going and sorting through this. It's just such a disaster, and luckily it's really not that difficult. The hardest part is just running the harness up over the steering column, but the steering column wasn't held in other than by 2 bolts. The rag joint wasn't even attached to the steering box. It was just completely, it was the fastest column pull I've ever done in my life because it's incorrect. But anyway, we'll get it figured out. All right, fuse box is removed, and weirdly enough, like, you think it's so complicated and intense, but it really wasn't. So you have this top of this box right here. It's screwed in by 2 screws. One of them was missing, and then the neutral safety switch was connected right there, and then nothing else was connected. It all just fell out. I removed the ground. There's a kick down switch on the throttle cable. I don't know how that applies to the manual transmission. But really all that's left is I've got to remove this little anchor point and it all just comes out. This looks like it was taped back. It used to be the neutral safety for an automatic. I don't know if they did that at the factory. Don't know if that's Bubba. But now, after we remove this dash harness is out. We can put the new one in. So this is the best way I have figured out how to figure out harnesses. There's the old one, which actually helped me out a lot. So the issue I have with this one is it's so spaghettied out that it's hard to tell what goes where and how it's supposed to go, but there actually is an order to this. So the biggest mystery on this harness was this yellow wire, but luckily I was able to trace and see where it comes out of the block here in the back. It shares a wire with a tan wire, which then tells me that this yellow wire is the key on power for the radio. So I will eventually run a yellow wire down the whole entire harness and get to that. Next, I don't know where that one goes off the top of my head. I'm sure we'll find it. We have the neutral safety switch for a clutch pedal. This little pigtail I took from the other harness. Here is the pigtail for the rear harness, which I've already repaired. We have a door ajar switch. We have a ground for the harness. Here is your driver's side courtesy. Here's your brake pedal switch. This is basically a resistor for that. Here's the headlight switch, which you can tell is not burnt, so that's good. There's no missing wires, unlike the other one, which was completely destroyed, and probably the main reason why it was such a disaster. Speaking of disaster, I put all new fuses in this one because it didn't come with one, but this one, all the fuses were 30 amps, every single one. If the fuse is blowing, that means there's something wrong with it. New, bigger fuses are not going to help. It was missing all of these relays for the seatbelt buzzer. We'll see about these. We'll see. Here is the connection for the speedometer. Here is all your steering column connections. This on the other one wasn't used. It was also taped back, so I don't think that goes to anything. We will have to check. Here is the wiper connections, the wiper switch connections. These are all the connections right here. Oh, I missed the tack. That's a tack. I need to attach the ground end to that. There is a missing courtesy or interior light part on this. This is for the center console. All the pieces are there. This is what's left of the radio harness. Pretty normal. Again, I have harness pieces from the old one to fit with this. And then after that, we have pretty much everything for the center console. Most of this I actually was able to steal from, like all of this came with the other harness, which is good because I would be missing it if I didn't have it. And then here we have this part which goes onto the passenger side of the dash. We have a relay with a flasher, and then we have the courtesy lamp, and then the door jar switch. So basically, I just need to make 4 or 5 new ends, new tape, wrap it all up to the top, and we should be good. I don't see why this wouldn't just plug in and work exactly like it should. Here's the final product, all wrapped up. All the little pieces fixed. I used almost an entire roll of electrical tape. But once it's in the car, we'll see how good it goes. See how good of a job I did. All right, here's the moment of truth. For the most part, the harness is installed. The dash pads are back in, so we're going to, hopefully the car isn't burned down, we're going to connect the battery. My opposite cables here. See what works and what doesn't. All right. All right, no big pops or arcs. Oh, that's a good start. All right, I guess let's start around the outside of the car. We got headlights at least. We had headlights before. Got a marker. That looking good. All right, let's go to the back. Before we had nothing because the back was just trash. Oh, we got a marker light. Got a tail light. Another tail light. We got a marker light. All right, let's see if the brights work. Oh, look. You have the light in the dash that actually works. That's good. You know what? These bulbs are burnt out. These are bright specific. And these have 2 filaments, one for low beam, one for high beam. These are just high beam. Not worried about that because I feel like they worked before. I don't know. I can't reach it. There we go. They might just be trash. That's an easy fix though. All right. Exterior wise, we're good. Let's see what happens when we turn on. Hey, look, headlamps. See what happens when we turn the key on. All right, listen for pops, smoke. All right, that's the key on. Look at that. We got blinking. we got blinking. Blinking really fast. Might need a flasher, but that's okay. All right, let's try the other side. Oh, blinking. Look at that, it's coming alive. All right. Let's try the horn. Oh, the relay's going. That means it's either wiring or the horns just need replaced. I'm not worried about that. Let's do gauges. So this whole cluster is from a later car, probably 75 or 6, because it has an electronic oil gauge. I'm gonna swap that out with the regular one that's in it, but they look like they're showing what they're supposed to show. But again, we won't know until we get everything hooked up and the car running again. But the big test is this. Oh, it turns the engine over. All right, that's awesome. All right, guys, well, we made progress. I don't feel like this car will burn to the ground like I thought it was going to before. If you guys remember what the harnesses looked like, it was absolutely just trash. But we got super lucky that the $80 harnesses I bought on eBay were actually able to be repaired, and it seems like they work really well. So a couple more things to button up, but I'm gonna call the wiring on this car fixed, all done. So we will see you guys in the next video where I try to get this car to actually run down the road. So that's gonna include brakes, that's gonna include suspension, and then kind of jerry-rig this automatic transmission to work. And then once I drive it around and know that it's good, it's coming out. Because you know what I'm gonna put in? That. All of that is going back, and this car will go back to what it needs to be. Guys, it's time to start the most important part of this project, changing this car from an automatic back to a manual like it's supposed to be. But here's the thing, most of this video won't be on this car. We're gonna start it with a different one. So at least 2 years ago, if not before then, I had made a video on this car. So this is a 1977 that was wrecked, sold through Copart, and then sold to me as a complete car, other than it being just completely destroyed in the front. There were quite a few people who said I should restore this car, but after digging deeper, other than the obvious wreck damage, there's actually quite a bit of damage on this car that was unknown to me in the making of the last video. The main one being the floors are rusted out on both sides, and the bird cage, well, let's just say it's seen better days. Someone's already come in and tried to put some goop all over it, but the way I see it, if that part is rusty, then the part underneath the windshield, well, that's going to be rusty too. Also, it's had some interesting, this is not factory, it's had some interesting work done to it. For example, all black, then silver. Also, it is not an original black 77. But anyway, I wanted to show you guys before I take this motor out and this transmission out, how bad this actually was hit. So as you can see, I'm standing square to the car. So that is where the frame rail probably should be, and it's been pushed in. You can see this giant dent right here. It's actually quite amazing how bad this ended up being. You can see this motor mount right here is pushed back a couple of inches, and the bolt won't come out because the bolt is being pushed into the engine to get that out. The exhaust manifold broke. The Z-bar is completely bent and trashed. I have another one, so we won't be using that, but my hope is that the transmission somehow survived the impact, and it doesn't have a broken bell housing, and the input shaft's all good, and etc., etc. But this frame is just so tweaked and so bad, it just gets worse the more you look at it. We have a ripped off control arm mount here. This front part, other than being pushed back, is pushed down. This control arm is banana shaped. The engine should be here, not here. The fuel pump is smashed up into the frame. Same with the whole engine is pushed over quite a bit. And then this box, this AC box that was right here, is broken because the engine smashed into it and caused a giant hole. So another view right here, you can see just how messed up this really is. Alright, I think we're ready to pull it, with the exception of the motor mount. Everything is apart and off. Is that off? Alright, one power steering line we still have to do. I'm going to cut this with the Sawzall because the bolt won't come out. Let's go underneath and look at the transmission and make sure we got everything done on that. The last thing we need to do, we need to push that tail shaft in and try to pop this U-joint out so that we can get the transmission undone. I've got the mounts are undone. Looks like maybe a speedometer cable still needs to come out. Yep, speedo cable still needs to come out. The shifter's all unhooked. I opted to leave the rods and the shifter in the car. It's easier to take out before or after the transmission's gone, but I don't see any cracks or broken parts or anything like that so far. We have yet to get it out, but we'll just have to see. Alright, we're ready to cut this engine mount, and I had to remove the alternator to kind of get my Sawzall a little bit better access. And check this out, something I didn't see when initially I looked at it. The alternator bracket's broken from the impact, so hopefully nothing else is broken and my transmission is in good shape, but it was a hard hit. Alright, look at that. It went thump once I cut it, but it's all the way through. So that means this engine and transmission should be free to be removed at this point. So this is my engine pulling setup. It's a 2-ton engine crane from Harbor Freight. It's worked great, and I've probably had it for 10 years. I've done at least 25 engine pulls with it, if not more. Great thing. The other major thing that I always remember to do when I'm taking engine out and in is you need a chain that's worth its weight. So that is a very heavy duty chain. Never had an issue with it. We have attachment points diagonally on the engine block, so it should come up and out. I'm hoping that we can lift it up and then scoot it over. The fact that it's twisted and kind of smashed into the frame on one side, well, we'll see if we can get around that. So here's the hoping. she's out. And you know what? I don't see any external damage other than obviously motor mounts being broken. And maybe this exhaust manifold. The transmission looks really good. Dirty, but really good. Here's the other side. I think it's going to work just perfect. Alright, we have the transmission disassembled off the engine. And I'm happy. So here's the transmission. Everything does spin. I can get the output and input to spin. All the levers will shift into the respective gears. The bell housing isn't broken, it isn't cracked. All the correct shift fork stuff, Corvette only stuff, is there. That bearing could probably be replaced. I mean, it's smooth spinning, but there's just a little bit of play, so it's obviously used. We'll replace that. The other thing is the clutch is a replacement one. It is made in the USA, and you know, it doesn't look too bad. I've seen way worse clutches than this. And then here is the other side of it. That isn't perfect. The big question I have is going to be this flywheel right here. So this is for an older style engine. It is not for what I believe has a one-piece rear main seal like the engine in the car. So that is a big question mark, and that is what we're going to have to figure out next. But what we can do now is we can take all these pieces, we can clean up what we're going to reuse, we can probably reseal that transmission, open it up, look inside of it, make sure all the gears look good inside. Because honestly, if the gears look good and it shifts through everything, it's fairly simple. But yeah, that was what I wanted to get done today, and we're on to the next step, which is pull out another engine and another transmission. All right, we are back working on the 73, and sadly, in order to put a different transmission in it, we have to take the engine and the transmission both out of the car, and I'll show you why. So this being an original manual transmission car, this cross member is actually welded in. So if this was an automatic car, we could drop this and remove it, or at least move it out of the way enough to get this transmission out. But the problem is, this transmission, I can't drop it from the bottom. Like what I'd normally do in a transmission swap is leave the engine in, drop the transmission, put the new one in. We can't do that, so it's all gonna come out. So luckily, whoever had this car before definitely did not do a very quality job in installing it at all. I put these bolts in, so there's that. The shift cable is already gone. The speedometer cable was never hooked up. We come over on this side, the modulator line is unhooked. These cooler lines went to nothing. Basically, all I had to do was unhook the tri-shaft and take these two bolts out, and the transmission from here to here is ready to come out. So maybe there's a good thing from, you know, dummies working on it, but less work for me, I guess. And then easy enough, we'll drop the headers, we'll unhook the starter, we'll take the fuel pump lines off, we'll come around here, we'll do the same thing on this side with the header, motor mount bolts, and then in reality, that should be it. That should be all it needs to come out. So it shouldn't take too long. All right, and just like that, it's ready to pull. It literally took me like half an hour, maybe 45 minutes, since I already had all the cooling system apart to replace the radiator. And yeah, we're ready. There's really shouldn't be anything else connected. We got the headers, the fuel pump, the motor mount bolts were hand tight. So yes, this engine was just thrown in here to resale. But you know what? We're gonna make it a real good driver. So let's get the engine hoist and let's take this sucker out. Well, it's out. I was this close to not making a mess, but the front of the engine moved forward and made a mess. Dang it. This close, I didn't spill a drop of anything. No transmission fluid, no fuel, no anything until I get it here. So that's just how it goes. But we have the there's a transmission ready to be removed. It's painted. It's actually maybe rebuilt, I don't know, but it'll probably be for sale or kept around until I need one. But we'll get that off and see what we're working with. Alright guys, that's gonna do it for this video. It's way too hot to continue today, but a cold front coming in tonight, so tomorrow we can get on to putting the manual transmission in it. So this is part 1. I'll see you guys in part 2. Go. Alright. So this shows me that I need an externally balanced flywheel and then one that fits the one piece rear main seal, which is what we have. Alright, I got the pilot bushing bearing, it's a bearing, installed. You want to get it flush with the crank. I did have video of it, but it got deleted as I was messing around with it, so it's in. All I did was take the socket and the hammer and just lightly pound it. I did put it in the freezer before. Alright, so here is flywheel. And I put some thread locker on these. So that way they don't back out and then decide they want to meet the clutch. Well, now I know why Pole Barn Garage loves the super clean stuff. So I just sprayed this stuff on there, let it sit for 5 minutes. Look at that. I know it's just dirt, but it just saves so much scrubbing, so much time. Gets all over you there. Look at that. You can tell the parts that I didn't get. Alright, one of the next things we need to do is connect the clutch pedal to the transmission. And the way you do it is through what's called a Z-bar. So this is the Z-bar that was off of the wrecked car. As you can see, pretty messed up. This is the Z-bar I had, and I was really excited to use it until I found out that the ball for the pivot, which is right here, goes in the side of the engine, was broken. So I decided to go ahead and just buy a whole kit that would have everything that I need to put everything together. That way it'll go in and it'll be new. So we have all the clips, all the little fasteners, all the nuts, everything that we need to connect these two things together. If you look at this car, the number one thing if you're doing an auto to a manual conversion is you need to weld this bracket, you can see it right there, onto the frame. So that's where it goes, right in line with the boss in the engine block, right there, to put that together. So we have the rod coming out of the firewall for the clutch somewhere right here in front of me. I have a new boot on it, but we're basically going to
You see how it goes into that like that. We're basically going to adjust the nut according to what the old one is and go from there. All right, we have the end of this one rebuilt. Basically, the stud sits in the hole with a bunch of these plastic bushings. There's one that sits like this, then there's a stud, then another one that sits like this, and then it has a retainer clip in the end. So that was mainly what I was missing, other than a couple of these hardware pieces. But you have a seal, and then the nut, and then the little washer, and then that is the end that goes on the frame, and then the ball for the engine side just goes in there, fill it full of grease, and you're done. Here's a good explanation of how it all goes together in the assembly instruction manual, and that is what we're going to do. All right, here's the finished product. We have one spring here. I'm missing a spring that goes from here to here. I'll find that, but all hooked up like it's supposed to be. I did end up putting another of those plastic nylon bushings on this side because there was a little bit of play side to side, so I put one in there, and it's a lot more solid than it was. So we're gonna go in the car and see what the clutch pedal feels like. All right, the brakes are bled. I really didn't get much air out of it, a lot less than I thought I was going to, but there's a couple more things that we need to do before we are able to drive it. One is I need to put the spark plug wires back in and the distributor cap back in, hook all that back up, and then next I need to figure out a throttle. This had some janky stuff in it. There's still gas in that Holly. One thing I did complete before, I didn't have any footage of it, is I finished up the cooling system. So we have a new radiator cap, we have a new good used fan clutch and fan. The other one was the salami slicer one, I didn't like that. Put the shroud in, got an extension, the correct extension for it, and then a new water pump, and then also new upper and lower hoses, and last but not least a new thermostat. So cooling we shouldn't have an issue with. I'm not worried about that. Mostly I'm worried about the transmission, just because I don't know, it's used, who knows. But let's figure out the stuff on the engine side, and then we will see if we can't drive this around today. Alright guys, it's the moment of truth. It's hot and humid out here and I'm ready to be done. But before I'm done, I want to see if this car will move under its own power. I've been working on it all day. Things kicking my butt, but let's see what happens. Alright, batteries in. Everything I think is hooked up. Why does it sound like it has no compression? Or spark? If you guys ever had an issue that you thought was little and then it exploded, so this video is going to be a warning video to everybody to never put polyurethane bushings in your Corvette. Let me show you why. So this is where I'm at. Pretty much the entirety of this rear suspension has been removed. Now you might be thinking, why? Well, I'll show you why. In the beginning, I was going to replace the strut rod bushings. They're basically a bar that goes from the differential out to the trailing arm. And they control the way the tire sits. If you remember in the earlier videos, the tires were sitting all crooked, and I was like, oh, that's easy. That's just the strut rod bushings. So in the past, the previous owner had replaced the strut rod bushings with polyurethane ones. And here is what came out of the car. So if you look at this, you see there's really no bushing left at all. And you can see on this side what is left. So this is what is left of the polyurethane bushing. And it's literally crumbly dust. That's it. So I was like, that's easy. I have these strut rods here. We can put new ones in. I have stock ones. It'll be cheap. You know, I'll buy the new strut rod bushings, press them in, boom, boom, we're done. But it escalated. I can't show you this because they no longer exist, but the bushings that went in between the leaf spring and the trailing arm were completely gone. Like, there wasn't even powder left. And it was metal on metal the whole way through. And I was like, okay, I'll do those two. That's easy. And then it got even worse. It got worse once I started to look up here at the trailing arms sitting in the trailing arm pocket. Here is the best view that I can show you guys. So this is, or was, a polyurethane trailing arm bushing, and they're about that thick on each side. But there's no bushing left. They're completely gone. And I know someone's been in here because obviously these cars didn't come with poly bushings, but you can tell that the bolt that was in here was a newer bolt. You see it right here. That's a newer cotter pin, and then they reused the shims. But here's the thing, because the previous owner decided it was going to upgrade their car with poly everything, I have to redo all of it. So I have to redo the bushings in the trailing arms, I have to redo the bushings in the leaf spring, the bushings in the strut rods, but also I have to realign it, and I have to bleed the brakes again. So if the guy that had owned it, who knows how many previous owners before, had decided just to put rubber in, it would be all perfect and fine and there'd be no problems. But this is the main reason why you don't want to do poly bushings. This is the bushing. That's what's left of the bushing. All in there, it's just powdered. And there's literally a pile of bushing. That's bushing, all in there. So yeah, don't do polyurethane bushings. It's just not a good idea. The thing is, I know this car has been sitting a long time, and you would think a sitting car would be less prone to a bushing falling apart than one being driven. But in reality, I've seen both. I've seen where it's driven a lot and they fall apart, and it's driven a little and then they fall apart. So what can you do? But it gets worse. So I had a set of suspension come in off of a parts car. Anyway, it's gonna be for sale, but I noticed something interesting on it. If you look at it, the bushings on these adjustable strut rods are completely gone. And of course, they were the cheap poly adjustable ones, and they're totally gone. But it gets worse. I had a customer come in, and of course he had the same problem. And you look at these, they're actually quite new. Like, they're not even rusty. They haven't been in the car that long. But here's the poly bushing that was supposed to be in it, and they're just completely destroyed. These ones aren't obviously as bad because they're not crumbling, but at the same time they're also missing. So here's kind of what the poly bushings look like before they fall apart. But they just, I don't know what it is. It's cheap Chinese product, I don't know, but if you look down inside, they're just, it's just gone, man. And it's not worth your time to do it, you know, every year when you could just put in rubber ones and be done. So yeah, those are gonna get recycled. So there you go, note to self. Don't put poly bushings in your Corvette. It's really not worth it. Unless you really like replacing bushings every year, just don't do it. All right, so here's the setup. Basically, what I did, since I still have the arm basically all assembled, usually you would do this with maybe a bare arm or one without the rotor. I lifted it up with an old rotor to make it as even as I could. I have the bend of the rotor downward like that, the bend of the trailing arm downward, and then basically it's just a little mini press, this tool. So you're going to close the gap between here and here, here and here, and then once that's all together, you're going to take this big punch. Then what you're going to do is you're going to smash into that piece that goes in the middle and make it look like the other side. And I forgot the washer. We should probably put the washer in there. All right, and there you go. If you look down in there, the little cylinder is far enough up that you can take this, smash it apart. It should be good to go. Well, that didn't do anything. Let's try it again. That's better. Couple more whacks just for fun. There you go. It's all smashed, and now it will never come out, and it will last longer than poly. All right, it's been a minute and a really long day, and guess what? Like 4 hours later, I'm still in the same spot where I was. So I get these brand new bushings popped in, and then I'm like, okay, I have the arms off. Let's figure out the parking brake, because, you know, when I convert it to being a manual, that's something you're gonna want. And I noticed the parking brake cables in this car are completely gone. And a couple things that I found was the passenger side trailing arm actually has two brackets. 1, 2, and they're both broken. And it's like, well, I might be able to weld that, but I'd have to buy brackets. But it gets worse. So I went to go put on the actual parking brake hardware, and two problems. So if you notice in the beginning of the video, I still have the rotors on these, and so I popped the rotors off, just let's see what's going on. And we have messed up brake shields. So there's a giant hole in this one, and this one over here is missing this whole section right here that holds the parking brake lever. I have all new parking brake stuff, but here's the thing. I can't install any of it on either of these because with the holes, none of the hardware will stay in. So in order to replace this shield, which has the hole, I have to take it all the way apart. And if I take it all the way apart, then I have to basically, you don't have to rebuild them, but resetting, you know, dirty, gross bearings, you're already there. This is like step one, put the parking brake shield on and then assemble everything else to it. So going in circles, getting other arms, trying to figure out you know, can I use the brackets from this one? Can I use the shield for that one? And just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And finally I was like, you know what, that's way too much work. Let's see what else I got. So I came up with these trailing arms, and here's the thing. They actually came from the same car that the transmission came from. It's that same 77. The only issue I see with them is a wheel stud is broken on each one, but that's it. That's easy fix. So here's the reason why I'm going to use these. One, I spun them by hand. They spin just fine. The bearings sound fine. They're not rusty. All the brackets are there. All the brackets are not broken off. And I can pull these parking brake levers while I spin it, and the parking brake is all complete inside, and it stops the rotor from moving. So don't have to deal with the parking brake. And the craziest thing about all of this is that if you look at this arm, you'll see I can move this. Somebody put new bushings in this at one point. They didn't crimp them down, but they're definitely not bushings from 1977. That's certainly true. So, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and just use these. They're the same shape as the other ones. They just need so much less work. And I have the tool to crimp down these trailing arm bushings, and we should be good to go. So anyway, it's a workaround, but this car is like a freaking onion. Everything I touch, something else and something else and something else and something else is wrong with it, and just never ends. So it has to stop somewhere. So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna put these ones in it. They're just as good as those ones, except for they have the parking brakes, they have all the brackets and crap like that. And you know, I could actually sell those and make some money back. So we're gonna do that. All right, the trailing arm rear suspension fiasco has come to an end. There's the originals, here are the good used ones. So again, put a new stud, now I have 5 studs, check the parking brake. It now has parking brake hardware and new springs top and bottom, whereas those had neither. It has a good brake dust shield that actually will hold the parking brake hardware in, so we can use that. The bearing on it is good. It is rust free, it is straight. It also has all the appropriate brackets for the parking brake and for the brake line itself. And we now have good bushings inside the trailing arm. That's a lot of things. That's a lot of things that are almost never wrong, that were wrong on that set. And of course, I ruined a perfectly good brand new set of trailing arm bushings, but luckily, I got lucky, I guess, that these ones were actually been replaced before and were in good shape, just needed the extra washers and then the installation. So here on this side, same kind of thing, rotor all cleaned up. It'll go back together just fine, and hopefully soon we'll have a car on all 4 wheels again. But like I said before, please don't put poly bushings in your Corvette. For all the mechanics out there, we'll thank you later. Just don't do it. Alright guys, it's the moment of truth. It's hot and humid out here and I'm ready to be done. But before I'm done, I want to see if this car will move under its own power. I've been working on it all day. Things kicking my butt. But let's see what happens. Alright, batteries in. Everything I think is hooked up. Why does it sound like it has no compression? Or spark? Also, don't run your wheels with the car in the air for very long because the U-joints can bind, but I just wanted to make sure it's gonna move. We got issues in the carburetor. The secondaries are dripping like crazy. But we won't worry about that right now. I can't do this with one hand. It's not automatic. about. I go to pull the e-brake and it's just wobbling and the ratchet doesn't work, so we'll worry about that later. Let's go check and make sure nothing's burning. Alright, looks like we got a little bit of an oil leak right there. That's okay. Oh, it runs so much better with the valve cover gaskets. Okay, a little bit of a leak right there. Well, this side of the radiator is hot and this side is cold. So that means the radiator is doing what it's supposed to do. We're burning something off of there. It's like one side decided it wanted to free up. There's probably crap in the bowl. That's probably what it is. No, the transmission didn't make any noise while we were driving. Other than, you know, the big hole in the exhaust in the back, it sounded pretty good. It's kind of hard to do with while holding the camera. But no, the rear end, I felt a couple pops of the posi clutches in the rear differential, but you know what? That's to be expected. It hasn't run in a long time. I did check it, it is full. It sounds so much better with the exhaust gaskets on. A little smoky, but again, it is burning a little rich. So I wish that would give it up. I wonder what that's about. Why is that pipe so much more oily than the rest? But it is what it is. I'm happy with it. That's a success. Chopstick, what do you think? Not very impressed, I see. Just leaving. So here's the car pretty much as I got it. I mean, it's a little cleaner because I have rubbed on the front of the fenders as I've been working on it, but it's just totally just trashed and grossed all the way around. So I'm hoping a bath will help quite a bit. Other than the rub spots on the fenders and the hood, the only paint issue I have on this car is this part back here. Someone thought it was funny that I thought this was brake fluid that dripped on here. Like, how does brake fluid get up here? Well, it's been sitting on my lift underneath another car, and it would be possible to have brake fluid drip from one car to another. The only way I can think of it. There's a few little scratches along this top edge, but I think it'll clean up quite nicely. So don't worry, I will spare you the video of me washing a car. It's weird when people do that, but we'll get it clean and we'll see what it looks like. All right, here it is, all clean and all dry. So it could probably use a buff. Definitely need to work on that. Looks like I missed a couple spots. There's some goo on this car that just took a while to get off, but a clay bar would be great on it. Get out all the swirls, all that kind of stuff. So not too bad. But again, I would say it's a good 5-footer. It looks really good from 5 feet away. Better than a 20-footer. So we're gonna start on the front. I have emblems, I have grills, and then we'll move to the doors, the hood, all that kind of stuff. Just a few things just to make it look a little bit better. All right, we're gonna start with the easy stuff. So basically it's emblems, door handles, mirror, reverse lens, and a grill. So most of these things I already had, but some I had to buy. For example, I had to buy the door handles, the mirror, this emblem. I already had the Stingray emblems, the nose emblem, this license plate frame, and then the grill came with the car, and then this came with the car. So one of those things that what's on the car isn't great. As you can see, wouldn't a new door handle just look much better than that one? Maybe a new mirror as well. This car came from Texas, but it was also in Louisiana, so you have some coastal stuff that makes the chrome not so nice. So we're gonna start with something easy. We're gonna start with this mirror. So here is the old one versus the new one, and something interesting to note is that up until 1974, Corvettes had small head mirrors. So you can see the difference in the mirror head size. This is 75 to 77-ish when they changed to the bullet mirrors. But you can see the size is a little bit different. So I opted for the smaller head mirror because it's more correct. Luckily, it did come with a new gasket thing and a new mount. I might go back with the ones with the part numbers on it, at least the mount, just because they tend to fit better, but we'll see. This one had some kind of weird aftermarket screw on it. The mirror itself is not bad, it's all pitted, and you can see the difference. So we'll put this one on. They mount in the two well nuts that go in the door right here. So I've cleaned that up, got all the dirt off of it. We'll put the new one on. So here's one of the reasons why I like to go with the original parts if possible. Look at the thickness between the mount on the one and then the other. Now you might think, oh, that's not that big of a deal, but if you look at this one, I stick it in this base and I can move it back and forth. Or if I stick this one in it, I can't. So, made in China, factory part number piece, obviously superior, and we'll use that. But the new mirror should go on with no problems. As long as the bolts line up, we should be good. Alright, there's the finished product. Definitely a lot better of a look, I think. So next, let's move on and let's do stuff on the back. Let's do the license plate holder and the Corvette emblems. Alright, so this is definitely not perfect, but better than that one. That's for sure. Let's see if we can't take these out. I just noticed this one is actually broken. It has cracks here on the end. It's an original part. It's got a part number. This one looks like a reproduction, but again, it's better than that one. Does it fit the same? Doesn't feel like it does. Well, what should have been easy is not. Welcome to my life. Blah. Okay, why won't the same part fit the same? Alright, it's on. That was incredibly frustrating. Next we have these letters. So these I could probably leave, but they're a little crappy, and I have new ones and they weren't that expensive, so we'll put them on. They have little nuts in the back that hold them on. Shouldn't be that hard to remove. Luckily there's no spare tire carrier in this car, so that's how they're held on, just like that. I'll tell you what, the aftermarket, I can't handle it. So, I don't know if you can see this. You see those little dimples? They're like almost like pre-pits. to a brand new emblem. Same with these ones. I mean, luckily they look better than the old ones, but anyway, the other thing I don't like is the old ones were held on by speed nuts, but if you look at the size of the shaft here, those won't work because they're longer on all of them. So instead of a speed nut, they have these little push-on type clip things, which I guess work great, but it's really hard to get these off once you have them on there. And you know what? They're saving money because instead of giving you this, they're giving you this, and that saves them money. So it sucks, but in reality, what other choice do we have? You know what I mean? We really don't. Those are so hard to put on too. What's the deal? Well, there it is. I don't like them. Like, why are they already pitted? They look used. And the little push-on retainers, they don't fit very well. It's pretty trash of a product. Pretty trash of a product. But such is the aftermarket nowadays. Alright, in order to fix the emblems, well, the missing emblems, we're going to need a template on where to put the side emblems and also the nose emblems. But luckily for this 73, I have another. I'll apologize for the wind noise in advance, but we have a weirdly similarly optioned 73 that also is red, and it has the emblems that we need. So we have one on this side and then one on the other. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of paper and kind of make like a template of the fender with the holes, poke some holes, and then we'll be able to transfer that over to the other car. We're going to do the same thing with the nose emblem. I had an extra one, I don't know which one. Yeah, that other one's a lot better than this one. This one's kind of scratched up, but we're going to do the same thing, make a paper template of the front of the nose and then drill holes in the other front clip, and then we can mount the emblems. Alright, it's super windy, so if there's wind noise, I'm sorry, but basically what we want to do is want to take this paper we want to run it over as far as we can to the side of the car, and then we're just going to trace the edge of this front clip. It's not perfect, but it'll be good enough. And then we're gonna take the emblem. I had a punch, but I've lost it. I don't know where I put it. And we're gonna find more or less the hole. That. Find the second hole, the third hole, and the fourth hole, just like that. So now when we go put this on the other car, we'll know exactly where to drill the holes. Do the same thing for the front, but I got to remove it first. That's what color the car used to be before it got left outside for forever. Alright, so for this one, let's just line up the headlights. Way off. Okay, so we got one side on one side on the other. So these don't have to be perfect, but good enough. So here at the car, line this up with the fender. And mind you, this will not be perfect, but as good as you're ever gonna get. I don't think these were ever perfect from the factory anyway. One, two, three, four. All right, so we can kind of set the emblem on it. See how it's gonna look. And that looks pretty good. So for these holes, I like to use a 3/32 drill bit. Pretty sure that's what that is. And then to start it, you always start with the 1/16. Little one done. Now I think this drill bit's just a little smaller than the studs, and that's kind of what you want, is kind of an interference fit. Alright, so we'll do a little test fit. Stand back and look at it. It looks pretty good. And most of these you can just push in little by little, like that. There you go, installed. For the front, we're gonna try to follow the same as we did for the other side. Now again, it won't be perfect, but you know what? start with the pilot hole. Looks good. Alright, there's the final product. So, after drilling the holes, I'm not sure if I put it in the right spot. So if you look at this car, where the emblem is, if you look at that car, where the emblem is, and you look at mine, where the emblem is, I put it a little high. I don't understand, because that other car was originally red. So, well, it is what it is. So I was going to end this video with putting the door handles in this car, but we actually had a tragedy happen. It's been about a month now. That's kind of the reason why there hasn't been many videos up in the last few weeks. So we tragically lost our other dog, Noodle, the Great Pity that you guys have seen on the videos basically for the last 9 years. And I wanted to make a video to tell you guys about that because you guys have seen her, and I'm sure that, you know, Chopstick and Noodle were always a pair. They're always, you know, a couple that was on the video. So now all we have left is old Chopstick here. So we had Noodle and Chop. We got them both in 2016. So, you know, both been about 9 years ago that we had them. So it's sad. She was like the best protector dog. She was the one to scare off all the bad guys and, you know, all the scary Amazon drivers and the, you know, UPS drivers and stuff like that. But we definitely do miss her. But I wanted to make a video about it, just, or at least mention it in a video, just because I know that, you know, it was part of the content to see the dogs, and it's always sad when they pass. But we still have Chopstick. He's 9 years old, going strong. He's getting older and derpier every day, but he's still around, so you'll at least have one dog in the video. So I appreciate you guys watching this far. Most people don't, but we will see you guys in the next one. And he gave up. Look at that. He's done. He doesn't want to be on the video. Chopstick, you done? You want to go in the house? You want to go inside? You do? See, not the best shop dog. It is hot. Okay, today I'm going to show you guys the secret to installing these door handles. So I would say 90% of C3 owners will have to do this at one point, unless they already buy a car that's already been done. These handles are very common to break, especially on the driver's side. So the main issues that we have with these is this spring right here breaks just over time. And then the spring inside of here, this spring right here, this flap, it holds this part up. So that will break. So both of these things breaking will make it so these door handles no longer work. So I've had people pretty much once a week on Facebook make a post on when the door handle is installed, you have this rear stud. And it's basically impossible to fit your hand up in there and get a nut on it. But I will show you guys how to do that in order to install it correctly. If you look, I think this door is exactly like it. That door is a replacement door handle, I know, because I already did the other side. But if you look, most of the time this rear stud is left out. If somebody in the past has done it, 99% of the time they just don't put that in. They take the stud out, or they leave the nut off, and they just don't install it at all. So I'm going to show you guys how to not do that and how to put it on the right way. So the secret to installing this handle the correct way is you have to drop the latch, which sits right here. So this piece right here, which is the inside opener, pretty much gets in the way of any kind of tool or hand or anybody getting into that. But luckily, it's pretty easy to drop out of the way. See how they didn't put the rear one in? Yep, that's why. You also want to note how that rod goes from the handle to the latch behind the key cylinder. It has to go behind it. Make sure you keep that in mind while you do this. Another tip is remove this panel, because you'll undoubtedly either drop the latch or the clips or the little nut or anything down into the door, and it's much easier to get it with that piece out. The main tool you're going to want for this is a long set of needle nose pliers, and you're going to want a ratcheting 7/16 wrench, preferably with a curve on the end. Those are the main tools you'll need. If you have those, it'll be easy. Alright, first we're going to drop some lock rods out of the way. These have paint on them, so I like to put the clip back on the rod, lay it out of the way. This one the same. We're going to lift it up. This comes out. And then what we can do, put that clip back on there. And that always just kind of sit right there. Okay, so now the only things you have left to unhook are the rod to the outside door handle, and then the lock cylinder arm, but we're not going to worry about that right now. What we're going to worry about is the screws for the latch. So normally these are pretty easy to get out. There we go. Now I'm going to see if I can show you guys this. So if you look in here, this is the clip that holds the rod for the door handle in. And I'm going to try to do this looking through the camera. So you want to lift up the clip like this, and then you're going to want to push it like that. And what that will do, that will pop that out. You notice I'd lost the clip, so we're going to have to go fish for it. There it is. You'll be doing that a couple times. Let's get this undone. Sometimes the studs come out first, either way. So now, only thing that's holding this latch in are these 3 screws and the arm for the lock cylinder. And usually the way it works is the arm for that cylinder will make it so the latch will fall just enough to be able to get your hand in there. I don't think it can fall all the way down. All right, you see that? You see how the latch rotated this way? And now I can stick my whole hand up in here, no problem. Without that little lever, it makes it that much easier. And you can see how the latch kind of just sits, just like that. All right, now we can get this door handle out. It's a lot harder to do when there's no studs. There we go. So this door handle opened fairly well before. It was just really ugly. And then the new one we have somewhere, clearly that one's gonna be improvement, but you can tell these are aftermarket because they have these like handwritten R's and L's on them. The ones that you'll see that are original have actual GM part numbers on it. So anyway, let's put it in. So you can see this handle, it worked before, but it's failed because the spring has broken. Also, you can see the wear, the crazy amounts of wear that have happened because that broken spring, and it just cocked this to the side. Anyway, another thing you can do is put a bunch of grease right here, like heavy duty grease that will make it so it doesn't do that. But this is trash. All right, now we can go have the fun job of putting this back in. But before we do that, what we want to do is find the clip that we got off the magnet tool. And we're going to slip it on the little arm inside of the latch, because right now is the easiest time to do that. And if you don't do it now, you're going to be sad. So I need to find me another bolt. So we're gonna fish handle in, and remember, you want to get that rod on the far side. Get that rod on the far side of the latch, and then you can take your bolt, stick your hand in, and easily get to that rear nut right there, easily. Whoever put the handles on this car last did not put either of them on. That's because they did not know this trick. Once you do enough of them, you can figure it out. But you don't want to be that guy that doesn't do it. And then, once you get that done, make sure your vertical rod is on the correct side of the lock cylinder. And then you just lift up the latch back where it goes, and you're set. One thing that you can do also is grease everything, because obviously it's going to need it, but you should be good to go. Just like that. So after you get everything bolted down, the latch and the handle, you want to test it and make sure that it works before you slam the door and the door won't open, or you put the door panel on and then the door won't open. So anyway, you want to make sure your latch lock for your latch is up. Up is always unlocked. And what I like to use a big screwdriver, push in, that unlocks, that opens, and do it again. And that opens. Okay, so that was kind of rough, because it's super rough in there. So we're gonna spray it down. And then we can work it a little bit, and it should get a little bit easier. So there you go, the easiest way to put the door handle in. And then we got lucky on this one because there wasn't much in here that was broken or needed repaired. I mean, it's missing a clip here, and that's pretty much it. Driver side's always worse than passenger sides, but if you do it this way, you can get the handle in 10 minutes versus an hour trying to get some kind of tool. And yeah, do it this way, please. Alright, today we're working on one of my favorite things, which is the interior. So one of the reasons I bought this car is because the interior, it wasn't half bad. I mean, obviously it's used, but not everything needs replaced. The seats are decent, the door panels are decent, the dash is decent. What really needed was this in the middle. So here is the other piece that we're missing, was this. This just never was there at all. But we're gonna start with the shifter console. So pretty much everything tucks underneath this. And these wires come up to everything above. Kind of sits just like that. I'll plop these over right here. Now, there's no AC parts on this car, so there's no real point in plugging any of this stuff in. But you know, I'll plug in what I can. Still have it light up, right? One thing we need to do before we can move on to installing the center gauges is this new oil pressure line. So I believe it's 73 and down. They actually had a actual oil pressure line with real oil going into the car and reading oil pressure, and then they went to electronic the next year. It could be 74, I don't remember right now, but we're gonna keep it stock the way it was. This needed addressed anyway, so here we are fixing it. We'll install this, run it through the firewall, and then run it to the gauge in the back. So here is the back of the cluster, and you can see basically it's just a little oil line that runs the back of the gauge. So this is an old one that's been cut. We'll take that out and we'll put the new one in. Oh no. One thing I do want to do before I button this up for good, besides the oil line, is I want to make sure all the gauges work and that we're good to go on that. We're going to put it like that, and then we're going to start the car, check for leaks, make sure all the gauges are working, and then if that's the case, we can put it all back together and button it up. Oil pressure's working. Oil pressure's working. Battery gauge is working. Temp gauge is at 100, which it should be. Probably almost out of gas. Pretty sure that works since all that's new and it worked before. So now we just have to make sure there's no leaks. This side looks good. So it looks like we do have a leak on this end coming out of the hose. I'm always hesitant to really wrench down on these things, but you know what? You do what you gotta do, right? So here's something interesting. If you look at that fitting, it's just like a reverse cone down inside. That's all it is. And if you look at this, this doesn't seem like it's the right end. I mean, I would assume that this brass part is supposed to go down into the cone and seal around the top edge. This, on the other hand, just doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem like it's flared out instead of flared in. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't seem like it's the correct thing. So I'm gonna cut the end off of it and hope that works a little better. If not, I have other parts that I can probably thread onto this and make it work. But, you know, reproduction stuff from a Corvette company, and this is what you get. All right, we're finally with no leaks. So what I had to do was, I had an extra one of these in a different oil pressure line kit. I took this brass fitting off, basically pounded out the brass or the copper line, and then basically attached it to that, crimped it, and then put it on. So it all works now. We're all good, but I'll tell you what, right out of the box, it should have 2 of these, and it did not. So I don't know if I had the wrong fitting in the engine, which I bought that one for that. But again, aftermarket stuff just drives me nuts. It just never works right the first time. All right, we're making some progress. It's very slow, but the next thing, since I put the center console in, it looks way better, is we're gonna clean up this side. I did have to repair the courtesy lights. That was a really fun project. But one thing we're gonna do is take out these nasty floor mats. There was one on the other side. They was about the same condition. These are red mats. I mean, maybe they were ox blood at one point, but they're at least faded to red. They're stained, they're gross, and they're gonna go in the trash. And weirdly enough, I had a set of these black mats in my parts. And don't they just look so much better than those nasty red ones? And believe it or not, the carpet, after I vacuum it up, will actually clean up fairly decently. I mean, again, driver quality car, driver quality carpet. If you wanted to change it, you know, that's your prerogative. I think this car would look really good with black interior. All right, I think I'm done in the engine bay. So a couple of additions from the last time I made a video. I got a new air filter, base, and top. I kept this pretty simple, just repainted the Elderbrock one I had. Someone else will probably want to make this the way they want it, and I don't feel like I need to spend $200 on valve covers and an air cleaner just to have somebody yank it out. As you guys saw before, new radiator cap, good fan clutch, new water pump, new radiator hoses upper and lower, new thermostat, new radiator seals, so shouldn't have any cooling issues on this at all. I added a horn in here because the original one did not work. And if you check this out, the horn now works. Let's see. Oh, the other thing I did is I took the rear bowl off of the back of the carburetor. It was full of garbage, and that's why it was kind of leaking the last time you guys saw this run. Runs much better now with everything cleaned out. But like you guys saw in the last videos, all the wiring is new, the whole cooling system's new. New gaskets in the exhaust. I mean, there's probably so many things that I'm just not remembering right now. And then the most important part is the new transmission with the Z-bar and the clutch and all that kind of stuff. So here we have, ta-da-da, the interior done as much as I am going to do it. So my goal was really good driver quality, and I feel like that's what I got. So we basically reused everything with the exception of a few things. So the floor mats were garbage, threw those out, put in the black ones. I did add a horn button because it did not have those. The radio access panels on the sides of the console, I had to grab those from my parts. The same with the rear view mirror, the same with the sun visors. I mean, the interior was fairly complete, but there's just a lot of stuff that was just completely gone. So in here in the back, I had to add this piece right here that was missing before, but everything else is all there and in fairly decent shape. Again, good driver quality, and most importantly, the water temp, fuel, oil pressure, and all that kind of stuff, all those gauges work. So that's the main thing we're looking for. But yeah, I think that's where we want it to be. I still need to put these door handles in. I still haven't done that. But I've been putting it off because I want to make a video on it, and I haven't yet done it. So you might see that in a later video, but it's definitely way more of a car than it used to be. just when you think you're almost done, just when you think it's gonna be easy, all I have left to do is the door handles. Of course, it's not. This took me an hour to get off. So usually, these door cranks, they have the little clip in the back. Well, that clip was gone, and this door handle, which is door window winder, it's aluminum, was fused onto this, which is the little nub that the handle goes on. You can see, put a little mark in it, but I was able to get the window crank off without damaging it, which in order to pull the door handles, you need to get the door panel off. To get the door panel off, you gotta take these off. And to get these off, well, you gotta take those off. And of course, that added an extra hour. And the sad part, this other side is exactly the same. Well, you always wonder what surprises are gonna meet you inside of a door, and we have quite a few. So the big thing is, look at all this glass. They didn't bother to clean this out when they put a new window in it. You know, a couple little nubbers from the glass. That should be fun to vacuum up. Next is gonna be one of the main reasons why these door handles fail, because the spring breaks. This one looks like it's just off. Found a clip, but check this out. Somebody put a door handle in this car, and they didn't put any bolts or anything in there. They just kind of let it sit. So that's exciting. So we're gonna replace that. Wow, they just set it in there and they were done. That was it. Well, let's see what other kind of goodies we can find in here. There's gotta be, all right, so that right there is the bottom hit pivot of a door handle. That's part of the door handle. I don't know what they were doing. I don't understand. All right, I figured out the issue. Some genius JB welded the door poles onto, or the crank handles onto these. So yeah, that's why they were so stuck. JB Weld. All right, guys, it has come time to sell this Corvette. So you guys have gotten probably, I don't know, it's 5 or 6 whole videos off of it, and it is now for sale. So I've had quite a few people express interest in it. I'm not really gonna go into details or prices or anything on this video. If you're interested, send me an email. It's down below. We can talk about price, etc., etc. So this will be the end of this video, end of this car, and I want to talk about if this was worth buying the car sight unseen. That was kind of the whole deal. Was the car worth buying it sight unseen? I've never done it before and made videos on it. So my answer is yes and no. So we'll talk about the yes first. So yes, it was worth it because we took a car that didn't run, didn't drive, didn't stop, didn't do anything, and now it does all those things. It's a vehicle, again, it can be used, and it can go on to the next person to basically continue the restoration and continue to make it even nicer than it is. It wasn't worth it because this car had like 5 things that I've never dealt with before in any of the cars I've ever worked on. I have never had to replace all of the wiring in a car because of people hacking it up, because of people burning it up and just doing it completely wrong. I've never done, entire engine harness, an entire dash harness, an entire rear taillight harness, and then fix the front harness. I've never had to do that on any car. So that was a complete surprise. Did the previous owner know about that? Probably not, at least not to the extent that how hacked it really was. The other thing would be basically the suspension. I've never seen a car come in that needed all of it in such a dramatic way, as in all the rear suspension bushings were completely gone. I've never seen that before. And of course, we dealt with it. So was it worth it for me to do it? Yes. Now, here's the thing. It probably wouldn't have been worth it for somebody that didn't have a Corvette junkyard in their backyard to buy a car like this, because I was able to source, I would probably say 75% of the parts from there. And technically, I bought those cars, but I didn't, have to buy a brand new part from a Corvette vendor for a large amount of money. So, I had parts I could use. I saved a lot of money that way.
you know, for the novice, I don't think it would have been a good eBay buy to buy this car. I think somebody, if it was like their first vet or they've never worked on cars before and they bought this car, they would have get overwhelmed and they would have just, you know, let it sit, and it just would have never happened. I know if this was my first Corvette back when I was, you know, 19 years old and I had to redo the entirety of the harness, I don't know if I would have done it. I don't know if I would have, you know, felt comfortable doing that. Same with, you know, all the rear suspension, all that kind of stuff. I don't think it would have happened. So what do you guys think? I mean, let's talk about it in the comments. Do you think it was worth it for me to have bought this car sight unseen? I'm definitely glad I'm the one who got it, because I feel like I did a, you know, fairly decent job on it and had the ability and the parts availability, you know, to get it to where it needed to be. So now it can be someone else's car and someone else's project. So again, if you're interested in it, let me know and we can go from there. So I do have quite a few videos coming. They might take a little while to get out, but yes, there will be more videos, another new project or another 7. So stay tuned, guys. Thanks for watching.